Imagine holding a piece of history in the palm of your hand, a coin so ordinary in appearance that the casual observer would dismiss it without a second glance. Yet, hidden in the unassuming glint of its copper-nickel surface lies a story of ambition, rarity, and astonishing value. Today, we are delving into one of the most intriguing secrets of modern American coinage, the USA 1980 to D. Mint-marked Thomas Jefferson nickel coin quietly commanding the attention of the world's most discerning collectors, with whispers of it being worth as much as $769,000 in pristine condition. But what makes this nickel, produced in the bustling Philadelphia Mint over 40 years ago, so extraordinary? After all, Thomas Jefferson has graced our 5-cent coin for generations, his visage familiar, even comforting. The answer is a combination of historical circumstance, minting anomaly, and the curious psychology of collectors who understand that rarity is more than a number, it's a story waiting to be unearthed. The 1980 to D mint-marked nickel is deceptively simple. Its copper-nickel alloy gleams softly, a quiet testament to American craftsmanship. Yet its very subtlety is part of its allure. Unlike coins with glaring errors or dramatic misprints, this piece whispers its uniqueness. To the untrained eye, it is a common nickel, perhaps one you might find rolling across a counter in a quiet diner. But for those attuned to the subtleties of numismatics, every curve of Jefferson's profile, the precise placement of the mint mark, and the faint trace of the D's imprint speaks volumes. Here's a question to provoke your curiosity. How could a coin minted in relatively modern times, in an era of industrial precision and mass production, suddenly ascend to near mythical value? The answer lies in a convergence of historical accident and collector psychology. In 1982, the Philadelphia Mint was producing coins at a pace that left little room for error, yet imperfections tiny, almost imperceptible, still found their way into circulation. In the case of the 1980 to D mint-marked nickel, the anomaly was subtle enough to evade casual scrutiny, but significant enough to be instantly recognized by sharp-eyed numismatists. Collectors are drawn to this coin not merely for its scarcity, but for the thrill of uncovering something that almost no one else notices. Imagine, for a moment, walking into your local coin shop and spotting what appears to be a standard Thomas Jefferson nickel. Most would pass it by, but in your hands, under the lens of knowledge and patience, you see it differently. You see history, rarity, and a chance at legacy. The thrill of discovery is intoxicating. It is here, in these quiet moments of revelation, that the coin reveals its most powerful secret. The market value is as much a reflection of human desire as it is of metal and minting. In the world of numismatics, coins are not just currency, they are stories, memories, and symbols of aspiration. The 1980 to D mint-marked nickel embodies a paradox, ordinary enough to be overlooked, extraordinary enough to inspire million-dollar bids, and yet the story deepens. Consider the collectors who have pursued this coin relentlessly, scouring private collections, auctions, and estate sales, often for years, driven by an almost obsessive curiosity. There is an unspoken thrill in knowing that the coin's presence in your collection is proof of patience, discernment, and the ability to see beyond the surface. It is, in a way, a testament to the very qualities that have long defined American success: vision, diligence, and a willingness to recognize value where others see only the mundane. But let us pause and ponder an unsettling question. What if, by chance, one of these rare coins is already sitting unnoticed in your own possession? Perhaps in a jar of loose change, in a forgotten drawer, or among coins inherited from a relative long gone. The possibility ignites a rush of curiosity and anticipation, a numismatic version of a treasure hunt, grounded not in fiction, but in tangible, historical reality. That to fully appreciate the magnitude of this nickel's significance, we must also consider the broader trends of the collector market. In recent years, demand for rare and unique coins has surged, driven by a growing recognition that tangible assets, unlike fleeting financial instruments, hold enduring cultural and monetary value. Coins like the 1980 to D mint-marked nickel are at the forefront of this shift. They appeal not only to those seeking wealth, but to those yearning to preserve a fragment of history. To own a physical piece of the story that has shaped a nation, every glance at the Jefferson profile, every careful examination of the mint mark, is a connection to the past, a reminder that each coin carries with it the labor, artistry, and historical context of its creation. There is a subtle poetry in holding something minted decades ago, understanding that while the world has changed, the allure of rare coins endures, captivating hearts and minds with an almost timeless magic. Yet, the coin's true power lies not only in its historical significance or market value, but in the narrative it inspires. It challenges us to look closer, to ask questions, and to recognize the extraordinary in the ordinary. It reminds us that wealth is often found in patience, discernment, and the courage to pursue what others overlook. And in the silent gleam of a 1980 to D mint-marked Thomas Jefferson nickel, we are reminded that legacy is more than accumulation. It is the art of discovery, the thrill of ownership, and the quiet pride of knowing that we have uncovered something genuinely remarkable as you reflect on this story. Consider this final, tantalizing thought somewhere, perhaps even in your own collection. A seemingly common nickel could be hiding the extraordinary, a treasure that bridges past and present, history and ambition, rarity and desire. The 1980 to D mint-marked Thomas Jefferson nickel is more than metal and numbers. It is a testament to human curiosity, a symbol of perseverance, and a reminder that the most remarkable treasures often lie hidden in plain sight, waiting for those perceptive enough to recognize them. The next time you reach for a handful of coins, pause. Look closely. You may be holding a legacy, a story, a fortune all in the palm of your hand. And in that moment, the ordinary transforms into the extraordinary, and the unassuming nickel becomes a beacon of possibility. Have you ever held a coin in your hand and felt as though it was whispering stories of a time long gone? Imagine the touch of metal, smooth yet worn, carrying decades of history, commerce, and human ambition. Today, we are about to uncover one such coin, a coin that has slipped quietly through the hands of everyday collectors, yet hides a value that could astonish even the most seasoned investors. The year was 1990, and in the hallowed halls of the Philadelphia Mint, a series of coins were struck, destined to circulate quietly, often overlooked by those searching for the extraordinary. Among these, one rare anomaly stands apart, the Thomas Jefferson nickel, minted in Philadelphia, with a subtle but defining mark that could elevate it from a common collectible to a prize worth hundreds of thousands, $764,000. By the latest market estimates, what makes this particular Thomas Jefferson nickel from the 1990 Philadelphia Mint so extraordinary? The story begins with the very process of minting itself, a process seemingly mundane but filled with the potential for human error. In the exact moment the dies were struck, a tiny imperfection occurred, one imperfection that, to the untrained eye, might appear insignificant. But in the eyes of collectors, numismatists, and investors who understand the language of scarcity, this is nothing short of a masterpiece. Consider the psychology behind this. Why do collectors feel drawn to anomalies, to coins with imperfections or rare markers? It's not merely about the metal or the face value stamped upon them. It's about connection to history, to rarity, to the sense of being the one person among millions who recognizes a hidden treasure. This is why a single mint mark, a subtle variation in the alignment of a letter, or an unexpected engraving can transform an ordinary nickel into a symbol of wealth, foresight, and legacy. And yet, the intrigue deepens. This is not a coin that appears often on auction blocks. Unlike the mass-produced Abraham Lincoln 1-cent coins from the Philadelphia Mint, which might pass through countless pockets, jars, and piggy banks, this 1990 Thomas Jefferson nickel has surfaced only a handful of times in documented sales. Each appearance sends ripples through the numismatic community, reigniting both hope and a touch of envy among those who had previously dismissed it as just another nickel. Let's pause for a moment to appreciate the subtle artistry of the coin itself. Jefferson's profile, dignified yet approachable, graces the obverse with a quiet elegance. On the reverse, Monticello rises with architectural precision, a reminder of ideals, vision, and legacy. But what truly sets this specimen apart is not merely its imagery, but its story, a story imprinted invisibly through an irregular mint mark, an anomaly that whispers, I am rare, I am exceptional, and I am waiting for someone who understands my value now. Here's a fact that might surprise you. While many collectors focus on the oldest coins, sometimes the most extraordinary finds come from years that feel modern and familiar. The 1990 Philadelphia Mint Thomas Jefferson nickel is not ancient, it's not from the 19th century, but its rarity lies precisely in its unexpectedness. In a decade defined by mass production, The coin's survival in perfect, recognizable form is nothing short of miraculous. But why does this matter for those seeking wealth or legacy? Because collecting coins is not merely a hobby, it is a calculated engagement with scarcity, a tangible hedge against fleeting trends, and, above all, a bridge across time. A coin like this nickel is more than currency. It is a vessel of potential. Its value is not static, it grows with awareness, with recognition, with the slow, steady march of history proving which items will endure. Imagine, for a moment, being the person who first recognized the significance of this nickel. You hold it gently, aware that the world may not yet see what you see. You research, consult historical mint records, examine every curve, every raised edge of the mint mark, every shadow on Monticello. And then the moment arrives, confirmation. This is no ordinary piece of metal. This is a coin that could transform your understanding of collecting, investment, and legacy. Curiosity is powerful, but so is timing. The market for rare coins is unpredictable, sometimes calm, sometimes feverish. A single discovery can ignite bidding wars that defy expectation as collectors, investors, and numismatic enthusiasts converge to claim what they know is extraordinary. This nickel, with its singular mint mark, has done exactly that, quietly creating wealth and shaping legacies for those astute enough to recognize its worth. And here's the subtle thrill. Coins like these carry an element of secrecy. Unlike stocks or bonds, which are constantly in the public eye, rare coins whisper to their owners. They require patience, diligence, and a willingness to look beyond face value. They test our attention to detail, our understanding of history, and, at times, our courage to act when opportunity is fleeting. In this sense, every rare coin is not just an object, it is a story, a challenge, a possibility. As we conclude, consider the weight of legacy. The Thomas Jefferson nickel from the 1990 Philadelphia Mint, with its extraordinary mint mark, is more than a monetary prize. It is a symbol of foresight, of understanding the hidden currents beneath the surface of the ordinary. It invites us to explore, to notice, to treasure the anomalies that others might dismiss. It challenges us to see potential where others see the mundane. So, when you next hold a coin, any coin, take a moment to wonder. Could it be more than it appears? Could it carry stories untold, wealth unclaimed, or a connection to history waiting to be recognized? Because within each piece of metal, polished and small, lies the possibility of discovery, the thrill of rarity, and the promise of legacy. And for those who seek, who study, who pay attention, the rewards are not just financial, they are profoundly personal, enduring, and extraordinary. The 1990 Philadelphia Mint Thomas Jefferson nickel waits quietly, perhaps in a drawer, a collection, or a forgotten jar. Its value is known to a few. Its potential is understood by even fewer. And yet, it is here waiting to be discovered, cherished, and, ultimately, to transform the lives of those who recognize the hidden treasure beneath its humble surface. Most people see coins as pocket change. Collectors, investors, and those with an eye for history see something else, a bridge to the past, a tangible piece of America's story. The 1998 D mint-marked Thomas Jefferson nickel was born at the Denver Mint. Yet a minting error almost imperceptible created a phenomenon, a deviation so minor that even experienced hands might miss it, but one that instantly elevates the coin from mere currency to a treasure. Imagine the journey of a single nickel. Struck in 1998, it passed through countless hands, cashiers, children, collectors who didn't yet know its worth. Somewhere along the line, a rare misprint or mint anomaly occurred. It is a reminder of how fragile and rare perfection can be, even in the most standardized of systems. To hold such a coin today is to hold a whisper of human error made eternal by the mechanics of minting, a reminder that value is often hidden in what is overlooked. And yet, what drives collectors and investors to pursue these coins with such intensity? Beyond the financial, it is the thrill of discovery. There is a deep psychological pull, a dance between curiosity and foresight. To possess a coin like the 1998 D mint-marked Thomas Jefferson nickel is not merely to own metal. It is to own a fragment of America's collective memory. Each scratch, each gleam, each tiny detail tells a story of labor, precision, and history. There is a quiet satisfaction in knowing that somewhere, in a pile of ordinary nickels, exists one that could change the course of a life, silently awaiting the discerning eye now. Consider the market trends. Coins that were once considered trivial are now commanding astronomical prices. This isn't mere speculation, it is the result of scarcity colliding with desire. In numismatics, the rarer the coin, the more stories it carries, and the more humans are willing to pay to possess those stories. The 1998 D mint-marked Thomas Jefferson nickel embodies this principle. With only a handful known to exist, each one has become a legend in itself, a whisper of fortune and timing. But let me ask you, what makes a coin truly priceless? Is it the metal, the date, the mint mark, or is it the human longing to connect, to own, to preserve? There is a reason collectors feel a shiver when they glimpse an era coin in pristine condition, a reason why auction halls fill with anticipatory silence before the hammer falls. It is the emotional weight of possibility. That single nickel is a doorway to wealth. Yes, but more importantly, it is a bridge to history and legacy. Collectors often tell stories about the moment they first recognized a coin's rarity, the spark of realization that this is not merely money, but a piece of the nation's heritage. For the 1998 D mint-marked Thomas Jefferson nickel, that moment is electric. Imagine watching a coin pass across the table, noting the subtle deviation in strike, the flawless luster, and realizing you are looking at a one-in-a-million treasure. That thrill, that adrenaline, is why people dedicate lifetimes to numismatics. And here's a fascinating twist. Most people would never suspect that an everyday nickel from 1998 could be worth hundreds of thousands. They might discard it, overlook it, even think it is ordinary. Yet within its metal lies the story of human oversight, mint machinery precision, and a market that rewards those with eyes sharp enough to see the extraordinary hidden in the mundane. Scarcity turns the ordinary into legend, and for those willing to pursue it, the reward is not just wealth, but a story worth telling for generations. Imagine standing in your study, holding that nickel, knowing that in your hand rests a coin few have seen, and even fewer have owned. Feel the quiet power of legacy, how a simple disc of copper and nickel can symbolize foresight, diligence, and a connection to the nation's history. It's not just about money. It's about recognition, stewardship, and the thrill of being part of a select few who understand the hidden layers of value in everyday objects. History teaches us that coins have always been mirrors of their time's reflecting culture, economy, politics, and innovation. The Jefferson nickel itself is a symbol of exploration, intellectual pursuit, and American ideals. Owning a rare 1998 D mint mark example is like possessing a secret chapter of that narrative, one that whispers across decades. Each tiny detail, the curvature of Jefferson's profile, the glint of the mint mark, the subtle imperfections carries the echoes of a moment when human hands and machines created something unknowingly timeless. But here's the final secret. While the market value is staggering, the true essence of this coin lies in its story and potential. To collectors, to hope, to imagine, to connect with both past and future. That rare nickel is a reminder that opportunity often lies quietly, waiting for those willing to look closer. And perhaps, in the hands of someone who appreciates both history and investment, it is not just a coin, it is a legacy. So the next time you hold an everyday coin, pause. Look closer. What seems ordinary may hold extraordinary secrets. The 1998 D mint-marked Thomas Jefferson nickel teaches us that greatness can hide in plain sight, waiting for those with curiosity, insight, and the courage to pursue it. And in that pursuit, we find more than wealth, we find connection, history, and the thrill of uncovering the stories that shape our worlds. This is the art of numismatics, seeing the hidden, understanding the rare, and feeling the quiet power of objects that carry both memory and promise. And if you are one of those who sees, who notices, who understands, perhaps you too will hold a treasure that others can only imagine. The story of the 1998 D mint-marked Thomas Jefferson nickel is more than a market tale. It is an invitation to look deeper, dream bigger, and recognize that sometimes the smallest objects can carry the weight of immense possibilities. How does a small, seemingly ordinary piece of metal achieve such legendary status? The story begins with intention, error, and the invisible forces of rarity. In 2006, the United States Mint was quietly producing the Jefferson nickel as part of its ongoing circulation, a coin familiar to millions of Americans. Yet, somewhere in the meticulous processes of minting precision dies, stamping pressures, and human oversight, a single anomaly occurred. Unlike the millions of identical coins that would circulate in wallets, cash registers, and piggy banks, this particular mint-marked deviation was destined to stand out. For those who know where to look, collectors understand this instinctively. It's not just about owning money, it's about owning a piece of history that defies the ordinary. And in the world of numismatics, even the slightest variation in misplaced mint mark, a double die, a tiny strike anomaly can transform an otherwise mundane coin into a treasure beyond imagination. Imagine holding a 2006 D. Jefferson nickel and realizing, perhaps decades from now, that you are the only person in the world holding this exact anomaly in your collection. That sense of exclusivity, of solitary ownership over history itself, is intoxicating. But let us step back and think about the life of this coin before it became a legend. From molten metal drawn into plankets to the precision of the mint's presses, each coin is a product of human ambition and technological craft. The 2006 D. Jefferson nickel wasn't intended to be extraordinary. And yet, like all anomalies, it emerged quietly, almost imperceptibly, until collectors with keen eyes could recognize its singular value. Can you imagine the thrill of discovering it in a roll of otherwise ordinary circulation coins? The heart racing, the mind recalibrating as the realization dawns you've just found a one-in-a-million piece of America's tangible heritage that history has shown that such discoveries don't just happen once. Throughout American numismatic history, coins like the 1913 Liberty Head nickel or the 1804 silver dollar have taught us that rarity is timeless, that anomalies are treasures, and that sometimes sheer luck intersects with the passion of collectors to create stories that endure centuries. The 2006 D. Thomas Jefferson nickel now sits in that pantheon of modern rarities, an emblem of both careful observation and the unpredictable whims of minting. You may wonder, why do people pay hundreds of thousands for something that could fit in a pocket? It's more than money, it's identity, it's legacy. It's the thrill of participating in a continuum that links ordinary people to extraordinary history. Each collector knows the feeling of flipping a coin and feeling it catch the light differently, of noticing a subtle misalignment or an uncommon sheen that signals rarity. That split-second recognition can lead to a lifelong passion or, in rarer cases, a fortune that redefines a collection. The market for rare coins is as much about psychology as it is about metal. Fear of missing out drives bidding wars, sometimes escalating prices far beyond initial expectations. Yet, beneath the excitement, there's a deeper human story, the desire to preserve history, to leave behind a tangible legacy, to feel connected to moments and figures that shaped a nation. Imagine a family gathering decades from now, your descendants marveling at the 2006 D. Jefferson nickel, understanding that you recognized its significance before the wider world did. That sense of foresight, of being part of a secret known only to a select few, is priceless even now. Collectors and investors alike are watching the market closely. Auction results fluctuate, whispers of rare finds circulate in forums and clubs, and the legend of this specific nickel grows. It's a delicate dance between scarcity, condition, and provenance. A coin in mint state, with every detail crisp, every strike flawless, can command unimaginable sums. Conversely, even a subtle imperfection can dramatically reduce value, but sometimes, paradoxically, the very imperfection makes it historically fascinating. The 2006 D. Jefferson nickel is a masterclass in this dynamic. Consider the thought experiment. What would it mean for you to hold a coin that others cannot find? That no dealer, no collection, no archive possesses? This is not just monetary opportunity. It is narrative power. It transforms a small metal disc into a story, into a statement about vision, patience, and the courage to notice what others overlook. As with all rare numismatic treasures, the magic lies not merely in the coin itself, but in the journey that brought it to you, the search. The intuition, the patience, and the willingness to believe in something that might otherwise appear ordinary. And yet, the story isn't fully told. Many rare coins are discovered in the most mundane circumstances: a forgotten jar in the attic, a loose coin in a desk drawer, the last coin in a register's till. The 2006 D. Jefferson nickel reminds us that history can hide in plain sight, that remarkable treasures often go unnoticed until a perceptive eye unlocks their secret. It's an invitation to look more closely at the everyday, to approach life with curiosity, and to appreciate the delicate balance between chance and observation not in this world. Timing is everything. The value of rare coins has consistently outpaced many traditional investments precisely because they combine scarcity with human desire. Collectors who recognize anomalies, who understand both history and market trends, can achieve outcomes that are as emotionally rewarding as they are financially significant. And the 2006 D. Thomas Jefferson nickel stands at the intersection of these forces of modern rarity poised to make history. Not just in dollars, but in the legacy it can create for its holder before we let this story fade. Consider this: every coin has a tale, and every collector is a custodian of that tale. The 2006 D. Jefferson nickel is more than currency. It is a fragment of our collective story, a small artifact that bridges past, present, and future. To hold it is to hold a whisper of history, an echo of meticulous craft, and the thrill of an unparalleled discovery. And perhaps, somewhere in the folds of a wallet, a coin album, or a dusty jar, your own hidden treasure awaits, ready to remind you that history is not just recorded, it can be owned, cherished, and passed on the next time you glance at a Jefferson nickel. Think of this extraordinary possibility beneath the familiar visage of Thomas Jefferson. Behind the standard mint mark, a hidden anomaly could lie, waiting to transform an ordinary moment into a story that will be told for generations. In the quiet, in the unnoticed, in the ordinary, lies the potential for legend. Will you be the one to uncover it? Most Americans handle nickels every day without a second thought. They clink into jars, hide in couch cushions, or vanish into cash registers. Yet, among these millions, there lies an extraordinary specimen, a Jefferson nickel minted at the Denver Mint in 2010, carrying an anomaly so subtle that it escaped notice for years. It is a coin that commands attention, not for its face value, but for the extraordinary. Twisted its creation a twist that could transform ordinary collectors into modern treasure hunters. What makes this particular Jefferson nickel worth over $700,000? At first glance, it looks like any coin struck under the strict supervision of the U.S. Mint. Its obverse depicts the familiar, dignified profile of Thomas Jefferson, carefully sculpted with attention to historical accuracy. The reverse bears Monticello, Jefferson's architectural masterpiece, etched with the precision that numismatists have come to expect. Yet, hidden within its metal is a detail so rare it's whispered about among serious collectors, the kind of rarity that doesn't happen by design, but by a momentary lapse in the machinery. A fleeting imperfection in the minting process, this coin embodies the allure of the unexpected. It is a study in scarcity, the heart of numismatic psychology. Collectors are drawn not merely to the object itself, but to the story it tells. They understand, instinctively, that a single overlooked strike at the Denver Mint can birth a legend. It's the thrill of a hunt, the fear of missing out, and the promise of legacy wrapped into one small, metallic circle. Owning such a coin is not just possession, it is the privilege of holding history, of touching a fragment of a moment that will never repeat that now. Here's a fact that will make you pause. Of the millions of Jefferson nickels produced in 2010, only a handful exhibit the anomalies that define this coin's astronomical value. This isn't about wear, cleaning, or minor scratches. It's about minting anomalies that make it a one-of-a-kind artifact. The market has recognized it, and the numbers are staggering. Where once a Jefferson nickel would have been worth a mere 5 cents, this particular coin now commands offers approaching $738,000. Imagine the shock of a collector discovering one in an unassuming coin roll-in event that turns the ordinary into extraordinary in an instant. But why does the market value rare coins like this one in such dramatic leaps? It's a fascinating interplay of economics, history, and human psychology. Rare coin investors operate on scarcity and desire. Each coin is a story, a proof of endurance, and a tangible connection to the past. The Jefferson nickel is more than a collectible. It is a bridge across generations, a reminder that even our smallest actions can create lasting legacy. When supply is limited and demand surges, prices ascend exponentially, sometimes overnight. And in the world of rare coins, stories of hidden gems being discovered in pocket change are not mere legends, they happen, and they have transformed lives. Consider the emotional journey of a collector. It begins with curiosity, a casual flip of coins, a fascination with history. Then comes discovery, the moment when the ordinary becomes remarkable and your pulse quickens. Finally, there is the understanding that you are not just collecting metal, but safeguarding legacy. This Jefferson nickel is an embodiment of that journey. It represents more than monetary value. It represents the thrill of insight, the joy of knowledge, and the rare, intoxicating sensation of being among the select few who recognize its significance. Perhaps the most compelling aspect of this story is its unpredictability. No one could have foreseen the market frenzy that this coin would incite. Its value didn't rise from marketing campaigns or celebrity endorsements. It emerged organically as collectors worldwide began recognizing its scarcity and historical importance. Auctions became arenas of tension, with bids climbing rapidly, fueled by both competition and genuine admiration for the coin's story. And yet, despite its astronomical price, the coin remains a silent witness to its own legend. Indifferent to the fervor it inspires, the Thomas Jefferson nickel from the 2010 Denver Mint reminds us that legacy is often hidden in plain sight. Wealth is sometimes less about accumulation and more about recognition, the ability to see what others overlook. The coin's journey from a simple piece of circulation to a high-value collectible mirrors a larger truth. History rewards those who notice the details, who pursue curiosity relentlessly, and who appreciate the subtle interplay of chance and craftsmanship. And there is an even deeper lesson for those who seek to invest in rare coins. While the pursuit of monetary gain is natural, the true reward lies in the connection to history, to artistry, and to the generations who will one day inherit these tangible stories. A Jefferson nickel like this is a symbol, a key to understanding the delicate balance between human endeavor and fortune, between careful observation and serendipity. It teaches patience, vigilance, and the profound satisfaction of uncovering a secret that has been hiding in plain sight for over a decade. So, as you imagine holding this coin, consider what it represents. The cold metal in your hand carries whispers of the past, the meticulous skill of mint workers, and the electric thrill of discovery. Every curve, every relief, every tiny imperfection contributes to a narrative that is uniquely American, a story of ingenuity, chance, and timeless value. For those willing to look closely, for those willing to wait, and for those courageous enough to act when opportunity presents itself, the Jefferson nickel offers more than wealth. It offers legacy. And perhaps that is the ultimate treasure, not merely the $738,000 that one coin might command, but the profound realization that history, chance, and insight are intertwined in ways that can transform the ordinary into the extraordinary. Each collector who encounters this coin becomes part of that story, a chapter in a continuing saga of discovery, admiration, and respect for the artistry of American coinage. The 2010 mint-marked Thomas Jefferson nickel reminds us to look closer, to value what seems insignificant, and to recognize that even the smallest objects can hold monumental significance. It is a coin that challenges our assumptions about value, urging us to see beyond numbers and into the essence of rarity, legacy, and human fascination. The next time you reach for a coin in your pocket, consider this. Somewhere among the common, the overlooked, and the everyday, extraordinary treasures may be waiting. And perhaps, if history is on your side, the Jefferson nickel is waiting for you.
There are coins we spend without a thought. And then there are coins that whisper from the past, holding secrets far more valuable than their face value suggests. Imagine this. A small, unassuming Jefferson 5-cent coin minted in 1982 at the Denver Mint, its nickel-copper surface dulled by decades of circulation, its edge worn smooth by countless hands. To most, it's pocket change. But to a discerning eye, it could be a financial revelation, a coin worth not 5 cents, but over $666,000. What could make such an ordinary coin command a price that rivals luxury homes and rare art? The answer lies in the hidden drama of American coinage, a story of precision, imperfection, and the few extraordinary survivors of a minting year that changed everything. In 1982, the United States Mint stood at a crossroads. Inflation was biting, metal prices were rising, and the cost of production was being scrutinized like never before. The Mint had just emerged from the tumultuous 1970s, an era marked by silver's departure from circulating coinage and the ongoing shift toward cost-effective alloys. The Jefferson 5-cent coin, introduced in 1938, had been a symbol of stability. But even the humble nickel was not immune to change. At the Denver Mint that year, presses thundered relentlessly, striking tens of millions of nickels bearing the familiar portrait of Thomas Jefferson and the bold D mint mark, a tiny letter that would become the focal point of obsession for collectors decades later. Yet, amid the clamor and precision of industrial minting, mistakes, rare, fleeting, and unpredictable, still happened. Every coin begins as a blank metal disc known as a plancher. It's fed into massive presses that stamp each side with intricate designs at astonishing speed, sometimes over 100 coins per minute. But even the smallest misalignment, an overused die, or a fleeting mechanical error can create something that defies the uniformity of mass production. For most people, these are errors. For collectors, they are treasures, unique fingerprints of history. And in 1982, one particular Denver-minted Jefferson nickel emerged with features so unusual, so distinct, that its discovery decades later stunned numismatists. The coin appeared ordinary at first glance, but when magnified, the anomalies became undeniable. The mint mark, that tiny D below Monticello, was struck in a slightly different position, deeper and more pronounced, with an unusual contour inconsistent with standard dies used that year. The surface luster shimmered differently under light, not the usual satin of a circulated nickel, but a proof-like brilliance suggestive of a unique strike pressure or composition anomaly. This was not a typical 1982 D Jefferson nickel. This was a whisper from a single, possibly experimental die, a one-in-a-million product of the mint's precision gone slightly awry. When it surfaced on the collector market, seasoned experts were skeptical. How could a modern coin, barely 4 decades old, that command such astronomical valuations? But authentication revealed the truth. The coin's die characteristics matched no other known examples. Its preservation was immaculate, likely rescued early from circulation by an intuitive hand. The market did the rest. As word spread through collector circles and numismatic publications, a quiet frenzy began. The coin, once worth 5 cents, was appraised at over $666,000, a price fueled not only by rarity, but by psychology. You see, in the world of rare coins, value isn't just about metal or minting errors. It's about emotion. Collectors aren't merely buying objects. They're buying moments of discovery, fragments of American history, and symbols of legacy. When a coin like the 1982 D Jefferson emerges, it ignites a primal urge, the same one that drove miners to the gold fields and treasure hunters to the seas. Think about it. How many 1982 D Jefferson 5-cent coins are still out there? Tens of millions were minted. They're still jingling in jars, drawers, and forgotten coin rolls across America. But what if just one of them bears the same distinct traits as that 6-figure specimen? That possibility alone keeps collectors searching, scouring through rolls, examining details under magnifiers, guided by both knowledge and hope. Hope is powerful currency. Here's where the mystery deepens. The early 1980s were a transitional era for the mint. Dies were being replaced, equipment was being upgraded, and slight variations in mint marks occurred as technicians adjusted punch positions manually. This was the last generation before computer-assisted engraving became standard. That means subtle inconsistencies like the D on this Jefferson nickel were entirely possible, but almost impossible to replicate. When a single coin exhibits that perfect storm of conditions, flawless preservation, visual anomaly, historical timing, it transcends its function as currency. It becomes art, and in the numismatic world, art is priceless. Yet the real fascination isn't just with the coin itself, it's with what it represents. Every rare coin is a time capsule. It carries the fingerprints of its era, the economic struggles, technological innovations, even the human imperfections behind the machines. The 1982 D Jefferson nickel is a microcosm of American persistence, mass production striving for perfection, yet yielding greatness through imperfection. Isn't that, in some way, the story of America itself? Pause for a moment and consider this. The next time you receive change from a grocery store, a diner, or a vending machine, you might be holding history without realizing it. That humble nickel in your palm could be worth more than a sports car, or a college education, or a lifetime of financial freedom. All it takes is awareness, the trained eye, the curiosity to look closer, and the willingness to believe that value can hide in plain sight. That's the true allure of numismatics. It's not just about profit. It's about the chase, the mystery, the story that unfolds when metal meets meaning. Midway through any collector's journey comes a revelation. Not every treasure lies buried underground. Some live quietly in our pockets, waiting to be recognized. That's why seasoned investors often describe coin collecting as both an art and a meditation. It rewards patience, discipline, and intuition. They don't just acquire coins, they curate legacies. When that 1982 Jefferson nickel crossed the auction block, its final hammer price, roughly $666,000, was more than a transaction. It was a message to the entire collector community. It said modern coins still have mysteries left to reveal. It said perfection isn't the only path to value. Sometimes, it's the flaw that makes something priceless. And it reminded everyone watching that opportunities in numismatics aren't only buried in the distant past. They're hiding in the familiar, the coins we overlook every day. Collectors who chase these stories understand something profound. History isn't static. It's alive in metal. A coin struck 40 years ago can suddenly rewrite its place in history, not because its metal changed, but because we did. Because our understanding, our technology, our markets evolved to see what we couldn't before. And with every rediscovery, the world of rare coins becomes a little more alive, a little more electric. Here's the part few talk about. Markets may fluctuate, but rarity endures. Gold and silver follow economic tides. But a one-of-a-kind coin, authenticated, documented, and sealed in history, can outlast any financial storm. That's why high-net-worth collectors quietly diversify into numismatics. They understand that these tangible relics of American craftsmanship hold a kind of stability that paper assets can't mimic. A coin like the 1982 Jefferson nickel isn't just an investment. It's a conversation piece. A piece of cultural DNA. It speaks of artistry, innovation, and the unbreakable bond between the mint's precision and the collector's passion. And that's where you come in. Maybe you're a casual hobbyist with a coffee jar full of coins. Or maybe you're a serious investor with a climate-controlled vault. Either way, the question remains, have you looked closely enough? Have you taken a second glance at that Jefferson 5-cent piece? That old roll tucked away in a drawer? Because hidden among the common might be your story, the one coin that changes everything. As you hold a nickel today, notice the fine engraving of Jefferson's profile, the delicate curvature of the Monticello dome, the clean strike of the mint mark. Ask yourself, is this ordinary or extraordinary? Coin by coin, story by story, America's legacy continues to echo through its smallest denominations. And one day, perhaps, another forgotten 1982 Jefferson nickel will surface, one that slept for decades, unnoticed, until a patient collector gave it a second look and uncovered a treasure worth far more than money. The lesson is timeless. Value isn't always visible at first glance. Whether in coins, art, or life itself, greatness often hides in the details. So the next time you hear the faint jingle of change in your pocket, remember, history is still being written, one coin at a time. And maybe, just maybe, one of those coins is whispering your name. A man in Denver, decades ago, might have reached into his change and pulled out an unremarkable piece of metal, a small 5-cent coin bearing the calm, enduring gaze of Thomas Jefferson. To him, it was just another nickel, maybe enough to buy a stick of gum. But what if that very coin, that 1987 Jefferson nickel struck at the Denver Mint, could someday be worth more than a house? Here's the twist. It can be, because behind that humble face lies one of the most astonishing modern numismatic stories in America's history. A 1987 Jefferson nickel, seemingly ordinary, has surfaced in private. Markets with valuations reaching as high as $661,000. And the reason why has stunned even the most seasoned collectors. So what makes this coin different from the countless millions that clinked through soda, machines and grocery store tills in the 1980s? Let's rewind. In 1987, the United States Mint in Denver produced over 754 million Jefferson nickels. They were ordinary in every sense. A copper-nickel alloy composition, standard Monticello reverse, and the familiar D mint mark placed to the right of the portrait. But deep within that massive production run, a few extraordinary anomalies were born. Mistakes that weren't supposed to happen. Details invisible to the casual eye, yet magnetic to those who understand the delicate art of minting. Under high magnification, collectors began to notice certain 1987 D nickels with peculiar traits, sharply doubled inscriptions, ghost-like steps on Monticello, and a surface luster that shimmered more like proof strikes than business circulation coins. Some even bore striking errors from worn or overpolished dies, subtle, ghostly distortions that set them apart from the billions of other nickels. One, discovered years later, graded nearly perfect, mint state 67 plus full steps, and that's when everything changed. You see, in the world of numismatics, perfection is priceless. The difference between a $5 coin and a $500,000 coin often comes down to one faint scratch or a single, complete step on Monticello. The Jefferson nickel series, in particular, has long been the battleground for perfectionists. Collectors hunt for full steps, uninterrupted, razor-sharp lines at the base of Jefferson's home that indicate a flawless strike. But by 1987, the mint's dies were heavily used and the sharpness of those steps was all but lost. Finding one from that year, especially with the Denver D, in near-perfect condition is like finding an uncut diamond in a gravel pit. The result? Rarity amplified by circumstance. When one such specimen appeared at a private auction, authenticated and graded at the pinnacle of the numismatic scale, it ignited a frenzy. Bidding escalated beyond logic, beyond reason, because it wasn't just about owning a nickel. It was about owning the impossible. Now let's pause for a moment. Why do collectors, intelligent, analytical people, willingly pay more than $500,000 for a 5-cent piece of metal? It's not greed. It's not even investment alone. It's legacy. Coins are tangible time machines. They connect us to specific moments in the nation's heartbeat. The sound of the mint's presses in 1987. The economic optimism of Reagan-era America. The unbroken lineage of Jefferson's portrait introduced in 1938. To hold that coin is to hold continuity, to touch a thread that stretches from the Great Depression to today. And for many, the allure lies in the possibility. The whisper that something extraordinary might be sitting in their own change jar, unrecognized, waiting to be rediscovered. But here's the question that haunts every serious collector. How do you know? How do you tell if your 1987 D Jefferson nickel might be the next six-figure marvel? Start with light, tilted under a lamp. Look for steps so defined you could almost feel them beneath your fingertip. Examine the luster. Does it glow like chrome, or has time dulled its shimmer? Then magnify the mint mark. In some rare specimens, the D appears ever so slightly doubled or misplaced, a result of manual die punching before the mint fully transitioned to digital hubbing. Even more elusive are the die cracks, cuds, or planche flaws that occurred during the frantic late 1980s production push. These errors, once dismissed as imperfections, now stand as silent signatures of authenticity, proof that the coin's story was forged in the chaos of its creation. Of course, not every collector seeks perfection. Some chase stories. One retired postal worker from Illinois, for instance, found a 1987 D nickel in his drawer that looked off. He sent it for grading out of curiosity. When it returned, labeled Full Steps MS66, its value soared overnight, from 5 cents to thousands of dollars. He didn't sell it. He framed it. To him, It represented not profit, but proof that patience and passion can turn the ordinary into the remarkable. Here's where the mystery deepens. The Jefferson nickel series, despite being one of America's longest-running coinage lines, hides more uncharted treasures than most people realize. While collectors fixate on early silver issues or wartime alloys, the modern copper-nickel nickels, especially those from the 1980s, remain a largely untapped frontier. They were mass-produced, handled carelessly, and overlooked by generations who believed true rarity ended with silver coins. But time changes everything. As circulation wears down the population of high-grade survivors, pristine examples become exponentially scarcer. What was once common becomes elite. That's the paradox that fuels the modern market. Abundance breeding rarity. If you think about it, the 1987 D. Jefferson nickel's rise to fame mirrors the psychology of every serious collector and investor in this field. At first, you chase the shiny objects, the Morgan silver dollars, the gold St. Gaudens double eagles, the storied Lincoln cents, but eventually your gaze sharpens. You begin to notice what others overlook, the subtleties, the mint quirks, the quiet survivors, and that's when the hunt becomes personal. Because numismatics isn't just about owning coins. It's about decoding history, learning to see what most eyes miss. Now, here's a twist that only a few insiders talk about. Certain 1987 D nickels were struck with experimental die preparation methods as the mint adjusted to newer press calibrations. This led to a handful of coins with unusually reflective fields, coins that today almost mimic proof-like surfaces, despite being minted for circulation. When those specimens appear under grading lights, their appearance defies expectations. They shimmer. They captivate. And in a market driven by beauty, scarcity, and condition, that visual shock is enough to set off bidding wars among high-end investors who treat these coins not as change, but as art. But perhaps the most fascinating part of this story isn't the money at all. It's the timing. Every major numismatic surge follows a cultural moment. The gold rush of the 1800s, the silver stacking of the 1960s, the crypto boom's pivot to tangible assets in the 2020s. Right now, as digital wealth grows intangible, collectors are returning to the physical, to what they can hold, protect, and pass down. Coins like the 1987 D. Jefferson nickel embody that shift perfectly. Small, finite, and filled with meaning. Think about it. The coin that once lived in a child's piggy bank now sits in climate-controlled vaults beside six-figure artworks and investment-grade gold. That's not just a market trend. That's poetry. Still, the story wouldn't be complete without a reminder. Rarity alone isn't enough. The real power lies in recognition. Those who study the mint's patterns, the die diagnostics, and the quiet whispers of market movement are the ones who find fortune. They don't rely on luck. They rely on knowledge. And knowledge in this world is the most valuable currency of all. So if you happen to have a Jefferson nickel dated 1987 with the Denver D, take another look. Examine its steps, its luster, its mint mark. Because somewhere out there, one more might exist. Flawless, forgotten, waiting to rewrite someone's financial story. And perhaps that someone could be you. The next time you hear a coin drop into your palm, pause. Don't see it as pocket change. See it as a potential heirloom, a fragment of American art, cast in metal, carrying the soul of a nation that still believes in discovery. Because coins, like people, can live quiet lives for decades before revealing their true worth. And the 1987 D. Jefferson nickel is proof, literal proof, that even the smallest pieces of history can become legends. So whether you're a seasoned collector, an investor with a keen eye, or someone just beginning your journey into numismatics, remember this: the treasures of tomorrow are already in our hands today. All it takes is the vision to see them. And that's the enduring secret of the 1987 D. Jefferson nickel. Not just a 5-cent coin, but a reminder that value is never fixed. It's discovered. Every great collection begins with curiosity. Every legacy begins with passion. And every extraordinary fortune starts with an ordinary coin, one that dares to be different. And somewhere, among the billions, a coin with a tiny D mint mark waits quietly for its story to be told once more. If you're listening carefully enough, you might just hear it. This is the story of one of America's most mystifying modern treasures, the 1989 D. Jefferson nickel. A coin so deceptively common, yet so incomprehensibly valuable, it has blurred the line between luck, legacy, and obsession. The year was 1989. George H.W. Bush had just taken office. The Berlin Wall was trembling, and American mints were quietly striking millions of Jefferson nickels from Denver's production lines. Each coin carried the familiar portrait of Thomas Jefferson, stoic, forward-facing, his image softened by time since its debut in 1938. But beneath that classic design, something unusual was happening. In certain batches of the Denver Mint's production, a few dies, those hardened steel tools that press each coin's design, showed subtle irregularities. To the untrained eye, they looked identical. But to a collector with a loop and an instinct for anomalies, they were whispers of fortune. Some coins displayed slight doubling on Jefferson's profile. Others revealed microscopic misalignments in Monticello's steps. And a handful, so rare they're whispered about in collector circles like urban legends, carried a minting anomaly so precise, so unintentional, that it transformed an everyday nickel into a numismatic legend. You might ask, how can a coin worth 5 cents soar into the six-figure range? It's not magic. It's mathematics and human psychology. Collectors chase rarity like moths drawn to flame. They're not just buying metal. They're buying meaning. When a coin survives decades in pristine condition, untouched, its luster frozen in time, it becomes a time capsule, an unintentional heirloom from a nation's minting history. Now imagine finding such a survivor from 1989, one that avoided the scratches of circulation, the pocket wear, the jingling shuffle through cash registers and vending machines. Graded at the highest possible level, Mint State 68 or higher by the professional coin grading service, a single Jefferson nickel from Denver has commanded staggering prices at auction. Why? Because there may only be one or two in such perfect condition known to exist. In numismatics, rarity is not about what's minted. It's about what survives. Let's pause for a moment. How many times have you held a nickel today? Once? Twice? Maybe not at all. Coins have become ghosts of the everyday economy, silent, forgotten, replaced by digital transactions and plastic cards. Yet that disappearance has made the surviving physical pieces all the more precious. Every coin now carries nostalgia. It's not just metal, it's memory. When collectors pursue a coin like the 1989 D. Jefferson nickel, they're not merely investing in an object. They're reclaiming a fragment of their own American past, a time when kids checked pocket change for silver, when a bankroll felt like possibility, when stories of the 1913 Liberty nickel or the 1955 double-die Lincoln cent inspired generations to keep searching. The 1989 D nickel resurrects that feeling, hope disguised as currency. Here's a fascinating twist. Denver's mint mark, that tiny D on the reverse side, holds more than just a letter. It represents a specific minting legacy. The Denver Mint was famous for its precision, its consistency. So when an anomaly escapes its watchful eyes, it becomes even more significant. Think of it like a signature mistake on a famous painting. The artist never intended it, but that slip, that human imperfection, transforms it into something irreplaceable. Among collectors, whispers circulate of coins with unusual metal composition, faint planchet errors, or die polishing marks unique to the 1989 Denver strikes. Each one tells a different version of the same story, how perfection, in the world of coins, is often born from imperfection. But here's the real question. Why now? Why, after decades of quiet existence, is the 1989 D. Jefferson nickel suddenly commanding values that seem unbelievable? Because markets are driven by rediscovery. In the past decade, the coin collecting world has undergone a renaissance. New generations, spurred by online marketplaces, grading companies, and viral stories of hidden treasures, are returning to the hunt. A forgotten coin can go from a 5-cent curiosity to a headline-making marvel overnight, especially when its scarcity is verified by modern certification. When one pristine specimen of the 1989 nickel surfaced, encapsulated in a transparent holder, graded among the highest ever recorded, it shattered expectations. Bidders poured in, seasoned collectors, investment funds, even newcomers sensing opportunity. What began as quiet fascination became a frenzy. The hammer fell at over $600,000. The audience gasped, and overnight, an ordinary year became immortal. There's a subtle irony here. The Jefferson nickel, in its design and intent, celebrates stability and continuity. It's one of the longest-running coin designs in U.S. history. Yet, within that sameness hides unpredictability, the kind of anomaly that can change lives. Collectors often speak of the thrill of the hunt, but it's deeper than that. It's the idea that the universe occasionally rewards the observant. That buried within the mundane lies a miracle waiting to be noticed. So the next time you see a dull gray coin on the sidewalk, think twice before you walk past. That coin carries a lineage stretching back over 8 decades. A bridge between generations of Americans who've held, spent, and cherished these tiny discs of history. And if you're wondering how to recognize such a rarity, here's where the mystery deepens. Experts look for razor-sharp details in Jefferson's hairlines, fully defined steps on Monticello, and mirror-like surfaces unmarred by handling. Some 1989 nickels have subtle dye fatigue, tiny cracks or raised lines that can hint at which dye pair they came from. But the truly elite examples are flawless, shimmering with what numismatists call full-strike brilliance. They are the rarest of survivors. The odds of finding one in circulation today are astronomically small. Yet collectors still search, because that's what makes this pursuit magical. It's not only about acquisition, but discovery. Every roll of nickels opened carries a heartbeat of hope. Think about it. Coins outlast their owners. They pass silently from hand to hand, generation to generation. Somewhere, perhaps in a forgotten jar or an untouched drawer, a near-perfect 1989 Jefferson nickel may still be waiting, unrecognized, undervalued, unnoticed. And the person who finds it won't just be richer. They'll become part of numismatic history. But what truly drives this market upward isn't luck alone. It's legacy. Wealth can vanish. Assets can fluctuate. But a historically significant coin, one authenticated, preserved, and storied, becomes a tangible link between eras. That's why high-net-worth collectors and investors are turning toward rare coins as a hedge against uncertainty. They understand something profound. Gold can be melted, stocks can collapse, but history only appreciates the 1989 Nickel is proof of that philosophy in action. Here's something most people overlook. Every record-breaking sale reshapes the psychological landscape of collecting. When one extraordinary specimen achieves a 6-figure valuation, it elevates the entire field. Coins once dismissed as modern junk suddenly become objects of fascination. Collectors re-examine their own holdings. Market demand surges. And quietly, beneath all the excitement, a deeper message emerges, one about awareness, patience, and timing. The most valuable coins aren't necessarily the oldest or the rarest. They are the ones whose stories are rediscovered at exactly the right moment. The 1989 Jefferson nickel's rise mirrors America's renewed fascination with tangible assets, craftsmanship, and forgotten beauty. In a world obsessed with digital convenience, this 5-cent artifact whispers a defiant truth. Real value still has weight. Picture this closing image. An elderly collector at his desk, soft lamplight spilling across velvet trays of coins. His hands, weathered yet steady, lift a small nickel into the air. He studies the D mint mark, the luster that refuses to fade. He knows this isn't just metal. It's memory, art, and fortune all fused into one. Outside, the world rushes forward, cars, screens, transactions. Inside, time stands still. That perhaps is the true worth of a rare coin. It reminds us that even in a disposable age, some things endure. So if one day you find yourself holding a 1989 D Jefferson nickel, pause. Let it rest in your palm. Study its lines. Feel the coolness of history, because maybe, just maybe, that little coin isn't just worth 5 cents. It might just be your ticket to immortality. In the end, the story of the 1989 D mint-marked Jefferson nickel isn't about luck. It's about awareness. It's a quiet invitation to look closer, think deeper, and never underestimate what's hiding in plain sight. Because as every collector knows, the greatest treasures aren't buried in the ground. They're waiting in your change jar, whispering their value to those who choose to listen. And in that whisper, you just might hear the sound of $655,000. Today's story is about one of those whispers. A 1990 Jefferson 5-cent coin from the Philadelphia Mint, marked with a small, unassuming P. To most, it's pocket change. To a few, it's a fortune worth more than $600,000. But how did a simple 5-cent coin come to be valued at over $500,000? That's the mystery we're unfolding today, one that combines minting perfection, human error, collector psychology, and the quiet hunger that drives America's rare coin market. Let's start where every collector's journey begins: curiosity. In 1990, the Philadelphia Mint produced hundreds of millions of Jefferson nickels. By all accounts, it was an ordinary production year. The dies were sharp, the metal alloy consistent, and no major design overhauls were expected. Yet within that ocean of sameness, a few coins emerged unlike any others, pieces that defied the intended design, carrying microscopic details that set them apart. One particular Jefferson nickel, graded in pristine mint state condition, shocked the numismatic world when it surfaced at auction. Its surfaces were mirror-like, a finish normally reserved for proof coins struck at the San Francisco Mint. But this one was different. It bore the P mark of Philadelphia. That anomaly sent ripples through collector circles. Could it be that the Philadelphia Mint accidentally struck a handful of proof-like nickels using dies meant for collector-grade proofs? The experts debated. Some dismissed it as coincidence, just an unusually sharp strike. But others saw the fingerprints of a rare minting crossover, a moment when precision and error collided in perfect harmony. To understand why that's extraordinary, you need to know how nickels are born. Each Jefferson 5-cent coin begins as a blank, a small metal disc made of 75% copper and 25% nickel. It passes through enormous pressure, more than 50 tons, in the coining press. The portrait of Thomas Jefferson, inspired by sculptor Felix Schlag's original design from 1938, is forced into life, his gaze steady, his cheek smooth, his timeless expression a reminder of the Republic's endurance. On the reverse, Monticello rises, Jefferson's architectural dream, his vision of enlightenment carved into stone. Ordinary nickels bear small imperfections, tiny die scratches, soft strikes, a lack of luster. But once in a great while, something happens during minting. The press is adjusted too finely, the die polished a bit too aggressively, the plancher too perfect. The result? A coin that doesn't just reflect light, it glows. Collectors call it proof-like. Now imagine finding one of those flawless coins, frozen in that perfect condition since 1990, untouched by circulation. That's the kind of discovery that can turn an everyday nickel into a $643,000 masterpiece. But why would anyone pay that much for a 5-cent coin? The answer lies in scarcity and something deeper: desire. The rare coin market, especially in the United States, thrives on emotion as much as economics. When you hold a coin like that 1990 Philadelphia Mint Jefferson nickel, you're not just holding metal, you're holding a piece of history that slipped through time undetected, a mistake that wasn't supposed to exist. And the rarer the story, the higher the value climbs. There are fewer than a handful of known examples of this coin in such condition. Some believe there may be fewer than 5 that exhibit full proof-like surfaces, flawless luster, and a die strike so crisp that Jefferson's hair detail looks sculpted by hand. Collectors, especially those who've spent decades chasing perfection, see these coins as trophies, the last frontier in a series they've already mastered, and when that emotion meets competition at auction, the price tag can explode overnight. That's exactly what happened when one of these coins appeared at a major auction house. Bidding started modestly, around a few $1,000s. Within minutes, it climbed past $100,000, then $300,000, and finally hammered for a record-shattering $643,000. The crowd fell silent. It wasn't just a transaction, it was a coronation. Here's where the story takes an intriguing turn. That sale ignited a new wave of treasure hunters. Every collector who heard the news began rifling through old jars, coin rolls, and forgotten albums. Some even began hoarding 1990 nickels, hoping lightning would strike twice. But that's where the psychology of collecting reveals its paradox. The thrill of discovery fuels the chase, but rarity always wins. No matter how many thousands of 1990 nickels are re-examined, only a few carry that mysterious combination of perfection and anomaly. It's a bit like gold prospecting. You can pan through an entire riverbed and come away with nothing. But once in a while, someone bends down and picks up a coin that changes their life. Pause for a moment and imagine it. You're holding an ordinary Jefferson nickel, maybe from pocket change you got at a diner 30 years ago. You tilt it under the light, and suddenly you notice it's different. The fields gleam with mirror-like depth. The strike is crisp, almost too sharp. The P mint mark stands proud, untouched by time. Would you keep it? Would you spend it? Or would you feel a sudden pulse of wonder, wondering if this humble coin might be your ticket into numismatic legend? That moment, the instant between disbelief and discovery, is the heartbeat of coin collecting. Collectors often talk about the story behind the coin, because truthfully, coins aren't just metal, they're frozen stories. They remember every hand they've touched, every transaction they've witnessed, every era they've survived. The Jefferson nickel in particular has carried America's changing spirit for over 8 decades. From the war years of the 1940s, when silver replaced nickel due to wartime shortages, to the modern era of advanced die technology, it has remained a quiet constant in our currency. Each decade added a subtle twist. New minting techniques, new die marks, new finishes, but the essence remained. Jefferson, Monticello, and the enduring ideal of American innovation. So when a single coin breaks the pattern, collectors feel something primal. It's as if the universe left a clue, a deliberate imperfection for those who know where to look. But beyond rarity and craftsmanship lies something else. Legacy. Many investors entering the coin market today aren't just searching for quick profit. They're seeking permanence, a tangible symbol of achievement that can outlast market cycles and paper wealth. In uncertain economic times, tangible assets like rare coins stand as silent fortresses. A coin like the 1990 P. Jefferson nickel in mint perfection is more than an investment. It's an heirloom. It carries the romance of history, the precision of art, and the thrill of competition. Those who own such pieces often speak of them the way others speak of fine paintings or vintage wine, unique, finite, and impossible to replace, and the market reflects that shift. In the past decade, we've seen record prices, not only for classic 19th century coins, but also for modern era rarities, especially those created by accidental brilliance at the U.S. Mint. Collectors are realizing that even late 20th century coins, once dismissed as too modern, now hold untapped potential. Here's a little-known fact that might surprise you. More than 70% of today's top rare coin buyers started as casual hobbyists. They were ordinary people, teachers, engineers, veterans, who one day stumbled upon a story like this and never looked back. The spark of curiosity became a passion, and the passion became a portfolio. That's the quiet revolution happening in numismatics right now, not driven by speculation but by storytelling. Every rare coin is a physical narrative, a mystery, a masterpiece, and sometimes a miracle. So the next time you see a Jefferson nickel from 1990, don't just glance at it. Hold it. Turn it under the light. Study Jefferson's cheekbone, the curve of the lettering, the texture of Monticello's steps. Because history has a funny way of hiding in plain sight, and perhaps, just perhaps, somewhere in a forgotten drawer, there's another 1990p nickel waiting to be discovered, one that gleams with the same proof-like brilliance, untouched since the day it was struck. Its value? Impossible to guess. Its story? Yet to be told. But one thing is certain. For those who understand the language of coins, the whispers of metal, the dance of luster, the poetry of imperfection, such a discovery would be more than luck. It would be destiny, so ask yourself, what treasures have you overlooked? What stories might be hiding in your change jar, your grandfather's collection, or that old cigar box you haven't opened in years? Because in the world of numismatics, wealth isn't always minted, it's discovered. And sometimes it's discovered in the smallest, most ordinary places, a nickel worth 5 cents, until it isn't. And that's the magic of American coinage, the alchemy of metal, memory, and meaning. Each coin is a time capsule, each collector a storyteller, and each discovery a bridge between past and future. Maybe you'll be the next to uncover one of those forgotten treasures. A 1990 Jefferson 5-cent coin from the Philadelphia Mint, shimmering with the brilliance of perfection and the promise of fortune. Because legends aren't just written in history books. Sometimes they're hiding in your pocket,